This is a meeting to get a briefing from National Treasury on the Financial Matters Amendment Bill B19-2022 with specific reference to the Land Bank. The meeting is officially open. Let me welcome members of SCOF. Welcome the Deputy Minister who is in the platform. Welcome the support team from Parliament, from different departments. Welcome the media officials from National Treasury, and also if the board of Land Bank is here, is also welcome, and the CEO. Roll call and apologies.
Recording in progress.
We didn't receive any apologies, sir.
Okay, I received a call before this meeting from the Minister of Finance, Honorable Godongwana, that he won't be able to attend the meeting because he also has a commitment in Cabinet. He has to brief Cabinet about MTBBS, but he indicated that the Deputy Minister will join us. I can see the Deputy Minister is in the platform. You are welcome, Deputy Minister.
Thanks, Chair.
So let's move to item 3. We get the briefing by the National Treasury on the Financial Matters Amendment Bill B19-2022 with specific reference to the Land Bank. So, Deputy Minister, you will indicate, I think you will first give the opening remarks, and then you will indicate who will come, whether from Treasury or from the bank. So let me hand over to you.
No, thanks, Mackenzie, Chairperson of the Standing Committee on Finance, Mr. Joe Maswanganyi, honorable members of Parliament, National Treasury and Land Bank colleagues, members of the media, and everyone present on this platform. As the Chair said, the purpose of today's presentation is to respond to your call, honorable members, for National Treasury to brief the committee on the policy direction for the Land Bank, as well as to request the committee to support the amendment of Section 45 of the Land Bank Act, as presented previously by ourselves as National Treasury. We'd also like to provide an update on the recent improvements in the performance of the Land Bank under the leadership of the new board. Chair, I think we need to ask or clarify ourselves on what we want out of the Land Bank, ourselves firstly as government, and I think we'll also want to hear your thoughts as the legislative arm of our state. From ourselves as the executive, we want the Land Bank to make a positive contribution to the growth and transformation of the agricultural sector. The restructuring of the bank is crucial if we want to re-establish the bank as an effective and efficient development finance institution to contribute towards the growth and the transformation of the sector. In our view, the bank needs to prioritize its developmental impact and improve its support of development or emerging farmers, more importantly, Black farmers in the agricultural sector. In doing so, the bank must work closely with the Department of Agriculture, Land, Reform and Rural Development. Let me turn on to the update on the liability solution that we, or the bank and ourselves, are seeking to provide so that we deal with the debt challenge that the bank is facing. Chair, as we all know, the last 3 years have been challenging for both government and the land bank. And it is our view that the current situation at the land bank should be remedied, and so that the bank can return to its full operations as soon as possible. As we all know, the bank experienced liquidity challenges and defaulted on its debt obligations on the 1st of April 2020. And through a series of cross-default provisions, this meant that all of land bank's debt became payable at that point. And to remedy the situation, the land bank started the process of negotiations with its lenders to restructure out the outstanding debt and craft a workable repayment plan. This process of debt restructuring is what we call the liability solution. Over the last 3 years, the land bank and its lenders have worked on a number of possible solutions. However, Chair, due to the complexity of the land bank debt structure and the large number of lenders involved, the bank has to date not been able to find a solution that enjoys the consensus of all its lenders. The National Treasury continues to support the land bank in its debt restructuring process and is working with the entity to ensure that it continues to play its vital role in the agricultural sector, whilst working on the liability solution. We've also provided fiscal support to the bank. Since the default, we've recapitalized the land bank with a total of 10 billion rands. The 3 billion rands of this recapitalization was transferred in 2020, which assisted the bank to do the following: A, continue paying interest on all outstanding debt; B, start paying down capital on its outstanding debt; and lastly, to undertake limited disbursement on its performing clients. It is important, Chair, to also inform the committee that the remaining 7 billion is still available to be transferred to the land bank, subject to the land bank concluding the liability solution, which will cure the default position of the land bank. And I must also say that there have been improvements insofar as the land bank is concerned. Whilst as we speak now, the bank remains in default. It has managed to repay 43% of the debt that was outstanding in 2020, and only 1.5 billion of guaranteed debt remains. The bank has also, as I said, significantly improved its governance, financial reporting, internal control mechanisms. This resulted in the bank achieving a clean audit opinion in the last financial year against a qualified audit opinion in 2021 financial year and a disclaimer in 2020 financial year. The financial performance has also improved. The bank is in a healthy liquidity and solvency position and reported a net profit of 1.4 billion rands. While recovery efforts continue, were encouraged by the bank's effort to close its mandate gaps and are working closely. We are working closely with the Land Bank team in the implementation of its developmental finance program. The last issue, Chair, that I want to raise is on why we need to amend the Land Bank Act, particularly Section 45. In terms of the High Court rule, creditors of the bank may institute procedure to obtain a judgment against the Land Bank and execute against its assets, including its debt book, through the usual execution process set out in the rules of court. This process, Chair, may lead to unstructured liquidation or disorderly wind down of the bank. Although the process will be extremely cumbersome, time-consuming and expensive for the lenders to invoke, there are no guarantees that the lenders may not resort and invoke it. As I said, the National Treasury and government view the Land Bank as an important institution given its role in protecting food security and providing vital financial assistance to developing farmers. Therefore, the bank has to be protected from an unorderly wind down or litigation by limiting the ability of third parties from placing the bank in liquidation. It is against this background, Chair, that we request your support to amend Section 45 of the Land Bank Act. The amendments proposed provide an important safety net for the Land Bank and will ensure that the entity receives the protections afforded by the Companies Act. Chair, this brings me to the end of my introductory remarks, and we will now have a presentation by the National Treasury officials to provide further details as requested by this committee. And we also have the Land Bank Chair, Thabi Nkosi, and the CEO of the Land Bank, Khensani Mkhari, on the line, who, with your permission, will be available to take the committee through a number of updates on their side. Let me, through you, Chair, ask the National Treasury official, Rudzani and Lefense, to take the committee through. And as I said, guided by yourself, the Land Bank will also come in to give an update on their side. Lefense and Rudzani, over to you, please, through you, Chair.
Good morning, honorable members, the chairperson, and everyone in the call. I'll ask Mr. Radikiledi to just put the presentation up so that we can take you through the presentation. Thank you.
Rudy, thanks very much. It seems disabled to load, so I think the administration from the parliament would be able to load for us, because I tried to load it and it's not shared a screen and it's not allowing me to do that.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Chair. Can somebody help us, please, with the presentation?
Can you assist? Who
needs to make him co-host so that he can share the presentation, because we do not have the presentation electronically.
Otherwise, if it is okay, I can take you through the presentation from my side while we are waiting for the record to put it up, just to save time. Honorable Chair, is it fine?
Would have preferred a situation where the presentation is screened here. Bushle, you say what's the problem? I don't get it clear.
We do not have the presentation on our side. We do not have it electronically, therefore we are unable to share it. Does Mulawudzi not have it? Because I can see that he's the co-host. Is he not able to share the committee?
Where is Mulawudzi? Is he here in the platform?
He's the co-host.
Yes,
Yes.
I am in the platform, but unfortunately, I also don't have that presentation. And I was not aware that I've been made the co-host. Sorry, apologies.
Ruzan, you can email it to Zuti or Mulawudzi in a second.
Chair, I did email the presentation to Tebogo and Alan.
Alan has apologized. He has got a
And
family.
Tebogo. Okay, I emailed it to Tebogo also. Is it possible for them? I had requested that they make Rodzani and also Lefense co-host. I requested this this morning. Is it possible for them to make Lefense co-host, please?
Tebogo has got a challenge with connectivity. Do you have a Ruzan, Mulawudzi or Zuti's email?
Yes, I do have Beatrice's email.
Can you send it to her in a second? The
Okay, sure.
document. It will be preferable that we have the document on the screen.
Chairperson, Lefense is now co-host.
Lefense and Ruzani co-host. And Ruzani.
Okay.
Let me know if you can see it, Chair, because I've
Yeah.
okay, that's fine. Ruzi, let me know if you can direct me when you want me to move, and then I'll move the slides as you advise.
Okay, thank you very much, honorable members, and apologies for the hiccup. So you can go to the next slide, Mr. Radike. My name is Ruzani Mandiwana from National Treasury, as the DM has already mentioned. I'm gonna be taking you through the presentation. However, when it comes to the questions, all the relevant stakeholders will be able to assist from the Land Bank ourselves. Yes, and then I'm taking you through the presentation. It's not a long presentation. I believe we will finish it a bit quicker. So the purpose of this presentation basically emanate from your request from previous presentation that the National Treasury made when we were doing the Financial Matters Amendment Bill, and the committee requested the National Treasury to come back and give a brief on the policy direction for the Land Bank. Next slide, please. This slide basically provide you with a bit of a history, whereby, as we are aware in terms of the mandate of the Land Bank, in terms of what it requires, amongst other promotion and facilitation and development of agricultural sector. And we are aware as well that the Land Bank has been transferred to National Treasury in July 2018. And during that time, there was also a need for the Land Bank to effect a turnaround strategy that will ensure financial sustainability of the bank. In that regard, the government provided recapitalization of 3.5 billion over a period of 5 years, which started in December 2009. And then in total, the Land Bank received a total government guarantee of 9.5 billion so far. Next slide, please. We are all aware in terms of the challenges that the Land Bank is encountering, which emanated from the downgrade by Modi in January 2020, which resulted in the bank to go into a default since April 2020. As a result of that, or as a result of a cross default of clauses, Land Bank was considered to be in default and is currently in the debt standstill with the lenders and has been engaging with various lenders and groups in order to find solution which the Land Bank is in terms of their solving the challenges that the Land Bank has. Next slide, please. So in terms of the efforts of saving the bank has previously, I had mentioned that the bank has in total the guarantees for 9.5 billion, but so far the bank has utilized 5.7 billion in guarantees. And there are actually, in terms of saving the banks, there are coordinated groups that have been formed to support the Land Bank in terms of the debt standstill, and also in terms of the restructuring of the debt. Since the default in 2020, the bank has received a 10 billion recapitalization, of which the 3 billion has already been received. However, when it comes to the 7 billion, the bank has not yet received any transfer as a result of the conditions that needs to be met before the 7 billion can be transferred to the bank. And the purpose of the 7 billion was basically to cure the Land Bank default position and also to re-establish the development and the transformation mandate of the bank. So there are also other issues that the bank still needs to address or which they are addressing. For example, in terms of the balance sheet structure, currently the balance sheet structure of the bank is inappropriate in that there is still a need to address the mismatch between the assets and the liability. In terms of the profitability is low, though we appreciate, or that the committee is requested to appreciate or to note that with regards to the financial year 2022, the bank was able to generate a profit of 1.4 billion. And the committee is also requested that the origin of the net profit that the bank has generated was primarily driven by the impairment of release of recoveries, and not actually by the underlying performance of the bank. There is also a challenge in terms of the high cost structure. To date, the cost to income structure ratio, the cost to income ratio sits at 96% in 2022. There is also an issue in terms of the non-performing loans. The ratio has increased as well from 32.5% at the end of March 2021 to 47.7% at the end of March 2022. Therefore, there should be, or there are programs through the Department of Agricultural and Rural Development that should be enhanced. I think in terms of the performance of the bank on the profitability, NPL, and high cost structure, the bank can also give you more information in that regard. So in the short term, the Land Bank is actually expected to cure the default position which the bank and all relevant stakeholders are currently working on and hoping to resolve or to reach a solution soon. In addition, the bank is also expected in a short term to service all the interest repayment of clients' deposit, so that the bank can also, and also the importance of the bank as well to become operational again. And then in a long term, medium to long term, a full review of the Land Bank in terms of the operating and funding model, which will be based on the principle of self-sustaining business model, is also need to be enhanced. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, National Treasury do acknowledge that the bank, and I believe also the government also acknowledge that the bank is a key agency in the agricultural sector, and will continue to work with all relevant stakeholders inside and outside government in order to resolve the issues that the Land Bank has, in order to ensure that it goes back to the financial sustainability it was before. And also the Minister of Finance, as well as the Board of Directors, they are also working very hard in order to ensure that the bank go back to business. So in summary, that is the high level of the presentation. But if honorable members need more information, relevant stakeholders are available in the call. We'll be able to provide you with more information as you need. Thank you, honorable members and everyone in the call. Chair, over to you, or DM. Maybe I should take it back to the DM. DM, back to you. Thank you.
No, thanks, Roseanne. Chair, may I ask the Tabi Nkosi, the CEO of the Land Bank, and the team to add to what we have said, if necessary.
Thank you, Deputy Minister, and good morning, Chairperson and honourable members. Can the team please remove this slide presentation? We have members prepared a brief presentation from our side. Can someone please assist in flighting our presentation that we have sent to the team?
Lefense.
I think I'm technologically challenged. I tried to remove it, it's not gone. How do I move it out?
Can you assist?
Yeah, because it
Just
says
press sharing.
because it says it gives me the options of new share and resume sharing. So I stop share. All right, fine. I think I'm done it. Yeah, I've done it. Thanks.
Great.
No.
Lefense, could you please assist in flighting our presentation? I believe you have a copy.
I don't have your presentation, Chair. I'm not sure which one are you talking of.
Maybe just check your emails, please. And while you flight that, Chair, let me perhaps give some context to the presentation that we're about to provide. Chairperson, we thought that it might be helpful that given that the committee is considering the amendments before it, while the Land Bank is in a state of flux, we wanted to provide members with an up-to-date view of the performance of the Land Bank, give members an update on what has been happening at the Land Bank, but also give members an idea of where it is that we would like to see the Land Bank going, following the various interactions that we've had with our shareholder, the National Treasury, as well as other stakeholders. Chair, I'm going to be quite brief this morning in my presentation. I am hoping that we will have an opportunity to take the honourable members through our performance in detail, also following on the oversight visit to the Land Bank earlier this year. Lefense, can you just present? In presentation mode. Thank you. Members, just to begin with the overall purpose and the mandate of the bank, members will be aware that the Land Bank has a very, very broad mandate. And over the years, the bank has often struggled to really deal quite decisively with the dualistic nature of its mandate and has really struggled to balance its commercial objectives with what it needs to achieve in the developmental space. When we looked at the way forward for the Land Bank, we sought to learn lessons from our past, but we also looked at where we currently are, as well as the ambitions that we have for the entity. And we really translated what we need to do as follows: that we want the Land Bank to be a specialist development finance institution that balances financial sustainability with development outcomes to meaningfully contribute to development and transformation in agriculture. And behind each of these words, honourable members, are very clear definitions that really do guide the work that we do as we progress with the turnaround of the bank. And ultimately, in giving effect to this policy statement that we've set for ourselves, we were quite clear about the specific areas that we need to address. And these areas include things such as being able to provide affordable finance. And that means that we need to deal with this issue of the high cost of funding that the bank experiences and that we've spoken about at length. It also means that we need to very critically assess the barriers to entry for emerging farmers. And these barriers include things like collateral, like equity gaps, and also technical and business skills. So these are things that we are focusing on as we move forward with the new developmental lending program of the bank. And ultimately, honorable members, we do hope that ultimately, when we are done with the turnaround of the plan, the results of that turnaround will be quite evident in enhanced food security, in the economic impact that emerging farmers will be able to make to the sector, but also that we will be able to build a more sustainable agricultural sector, understanding that we are also faced with issues such as climate change and other emerging risks. Next slide, please, Lefense. Thank you. So, Chairperson, this is really a slide that talks about how we are looking at the turnaround journey of the bank. We are quite aware that the challenges of the bank did not mushroom overnight. These are issues that had been long-standing, and we need to be realistic about the fact that it will take time to fully get the bank to where it needs to be. So we are taking a three-phased approach to the recovery of the bank, focusing on the stabilization of the entity in the immediate term, and really focusing on the stabilization phase to be the basis for sustainable consolidation and growth going forward. And members, I'm not going to go into the slide in detail, but behind each of these phases, we have set ourselves a set of targets that we have been engaging with the National Treasury on, so that the shareholder is able to track our progress as we progress through the turnaround journey. Next slide, please, Defensive. Okay. So Chair, this slide just highlights the areas that we discussed with the committee. Defensive, just the fourth slide, please. Thank you. So Chair, this slide highlights the areas of discussion that really that took center stage when we had our oversight visit with the committee earlier this year. When we met with the committee, we highlighted a set of priorities that the board had adopted through its stabilization phase. We did commit that we would give progress updates to the committee as to how we progress in terms of each of these areas. In the next two slides, I'll be taking you through a brief progress update in terms of each of these areas. So Lefense, next slide. So the first priority that we set for ourselves as a board was the conclusion of the liability solution and curing the bank's current state of default. While we've made progress, as you'll see in many areas, we are making progress in very precarious conditions. And until we really deal with the issue of the default, the land bank will really be unable to operate to its full capacity and really reach the very ambitious objectives that we've set for the entity. As the Deputy Minister has mentioned, we've been very decisive about using the cash that we have on hand to systematically reduce the debt that was outstanding in 2020. Yes, negotiations are ongoing and we are yet to find a solution, but we have really progressed the discussions to a point where we have really not seen in the past. And we now have a solution that enjoys the support of the majority of lenders and are engaging with those lenders that we still need to engage with. What is really positive about the latest iteration of discussions that we are having with our lenders is that we've been able to craft a solution that not only focuses on the repayment of debt, but also has long-term sustainability of the bank at its core. And we really are quite grateful to our lenders for providing us with support and really understanding the development objectives and structuring a solution around the developmental objectives of this entity. Secondly, Chair, one area that was really cause for concern for us when we first started at the land bank as a board was the deteriorating quality of the bank's loan book and the increasing non-performing loan ratio. This does still remain a challenge, but we have set up very targeted mechanisms led by the board for the remediation of these non-performing loans, and these have begun to bear fruit. We are focusing on the prevention of further deterioration, but also on very high-risk clients and engaging with them through intensive farm visits and the offering of technical support where required. We also, honourable members, as you may be aware, insourced the service level agreement books that were managed by intermediaries. And this really affords us better credit control over the book and allows us to direct the portfolio in line with the objectives that we have for the bank. Thirdly, honourable members, as we've reported in our annual report, the bank did continue to lose critical staff as it went through its difficult period. We did see, resignations where there was a lot of uncertainty, and this was really cause for concern because these are the individuals that we do need to take the bank forward. These are very scarce skills in the market, and that was a concern for us. We have since introduced very targeted employee retention strategies and are reviewing our employee value proposition, understanding that post-COVID, the world of work has changed, and we really are engaging quite intensively with our employees on that, notwithstanding the very challenging conditions that we operate under. Fourthly, we were quite clear as one of our priorities that we had to focus on running a clean organization, on improving governance and ensuring that all was in order. This was important to rebuild trust, but it is also important for us to build off a very solid basis. And I am happy to report, as the Deputy Minister has indicated, that through extensive efforts of the acting CEO and her team, we were able to achieve a clean audit from the Auditor General in the last financial year. And this is really something that is a non-negotiable for us, and we do hope to continue on that performance going forward. Next slide, please. Our fifth priority, honourable members, was really expediting matters that had been outstanding, where we had identified instances of potential misconduct that have contributed to the bank's current state of affairs. They mainly relate to perhaps arrangements or transactions that we have some questions about. And we really wanted to deal with these quite decisively and not let them linger. So we established an accountability and consequence management task team at board level to comprehensively deal with these issues. We're engaging very closely with the National Treasury in terms of getting to the root of these issues, and those reviews are underway. And we hope that we will be able to provide the committee with an update on these very sensitive matters at this stage. The sixth priority, honourable members, that we communicated to the committee earlier this year was the need to implement a new revised strategy for the bank. When the bank fell into default, members will be aware that we really, in essence, shut our doors. There really was no guiding framework for the bank's work going forward, and we really couldn't see the path forward beyond the default that we were in. So we've been working very, very hard and consulting extensively with sector role players to craft a new strategy for the land bank and where it is that we need to play and what the specific role of this entity needs to be. I'm happy to report that we have concluded that process, and we are still in consultations with our various farm organizations, with our lenders, but we've received very wide support that the bank really needs to come in on the gaps that are very glaring in the financial market when it comes to agriculture. Sixth, we are quite aware, honourable, or the seventh priority rather, is that we're quite aware that there has been a lot of reputational damage when it comes to the bank, and it is important for us to rebuild trust in the market. So we've really increased our client engagement and worked very hard to reintegrate ourselves into the sector. And we've had very difficult discussions with the Department of Agriculture and worked incredibly hard to restore the trust of the department. And we will be launching, I'm happy to report, a new blended finance scheme in collaboration with the Minister of Agriculture early next week. And this will really allow us to partner more effectively with the department in terms of being able to offer affordable finance to the sector in a meaningful way. Our eighth priority, members, and this is something that we've been speaking about at length in the various engagements that we've had with Parliament, was the need to revise the bank's funding model. This funding model, as it currently stands, is inappropriate for the type of mandate that the Land Bank has and for the ambitions that we have for its entity. And we are in engagements with the National Treasury to really see how we can work around this and really see what a sustainable funding model for the Land Bank looks like that really allows us to support emerging farmers on terms that allow them to really thrive in their agricultural operations. Our last priority, honourable members, is the need to improve financial and operating performance. And as the Deputy Minister touched on earlier in his presentation, is that we really have seen improved financial performance in the last financial year. And the first half results of the year also looking very, very promising. We've been quite deliberate about really managing our operating costs and generating, our interest income as required. So I'm quite encouraged, Chair, by the financial performance of the Land Bank. We've also extensively reviewed our credit policies to ensure that they are appropriate and fit for purpose for the development mandate of the bank, and increase our capacity on the ground in the regional offices, because this is really where the rubber hits the tar in terms of engaging with farmers. So we've really augmented our capacity there. And lastly, Chair, in resuming these lending activities in the program that I mentioned earlier with the Department of Agriculture, we are focusing on three main things: providing affordable finance, reducing the risk of entrepreneurial failure that we see emerging farmers normally struggle with. And thirdly, really providing pre and post finance support, that we are able to hold hands with these farmers and provide them with support in financial management, technical management, etc. So we're quite optimistic that with this package of funding that we're able to offer, that we'll really start to see more sustainable performance from emerging farmers, and that we can have emerging farmers that really stay the course and are able to really thrive in the sector. Next slide, please, Lefenze. This, honourable members, is just an overview of our financial performance, really speaking to the points that I made earlier. And as you will see, against a loss of about 700 million in the financial year 2021, the bank was able to turn that around. And yes, a lot of this was driven by impairment releases, but I do want to note, honourable members, that even at the operating level, the bank still reported a profit of just under 12 million rand. So even in its operations, we are starting to see green shoots. The bank is also in a very healthy cash position, which is a long way from the liquidity challenges that we saw in the past. We're able now to even have engagements with our lenders about further reducing their debt with the cash that we have on hand. And I'm hoping that, Honourable Chair, that as when we get an opportunity to discuss our financial performance in detail, we'll be able to give you more recent financial results, as well as talk you through some of these indicators. Next slide, Lefenze. So, Chair, in conclusion, what we are seeing is really an encouraging performance from the Land Bank. We are seeing recovery. In fact, we have really managed to achieve many of the milestones a lot sooner than what we had anticipated. However, as I highlighted, we are progressing in very precarious conditions, and any interventions, whether of a fiscal or a legislative nature, that would protect the Land Bank and be able to really expedite some of the discussions that we're having, would be incredibly welcomed by the bank, and can only serve to really enhance the work that we are doing. We now have a very clear strategy. We know where we are going. Our teams know where we're going, and we're quite decisive about the path that we need to follow. We are open for business. We are resuming new lending activities, not just to developing clients, which has been the focus of our discussions today, but also to commercial clients in those areas where we know that commercial clients struggle to get commercial bank funding. And so, Chair, what I really want to communicate today is that we've really made significant progress in stabilizing the bank. However, we do still need to work on the funding model, and we do still need to really welcome interventions that are able to really afford the entity any protections in relation to the legislation that governs it, and any other interventions that the bank may require. Thank you very much, honourable members. That's my story.
Thanks, Chairperson of the Land Bank, Thabang Nkosi. Chair, may I ask MP from National Treasury just to add or say more about the request that we are making regarding the amendment of the land bank. MP, can you come in, please? And then I'll hand over to you, Chair.
Good morning, Chairperson and other members of the committee, and thank you, DM. Yeah, just briefly, as my colleague, when he briefed the committee earlier well, in September, is that this amendment is to replace the current provision that provides for additional management, which is triggered by either an application by the Minister of Finance or the board of the Land Bank. So the change is to align it with the Companies Act to provide for business rescue. And again, this can only be by means of a court application by either the Minister of Finance or the board of the Land Bank, and no one else. And then the other important provision is that the business rescue in terms of the Companies Act may result in liquidation. But the provision that we propose in the bill excludes the application of the liquidation procedures under the Companies Act. And the provision in the Act, the current Act say that only an Act of Parliament may basically liquidate the land bank. So there's no risk of liquidation under the Companies Act of the Land Bank. So it is an alignment of what is under the current Companies Act, where we apply certain provisions of the Companies Act, but not all of those provisions. And just apart from the amendments to the Land Bank, the committee may recall that there are also amendments to other laws in the bill, some that pertains to pension laws, which actually impact on individuals, and we would really appreciate if the committee can consider those amendments. And then there's also amendments to the Ordinary Profession Act that to assist with disciplinary hearings that's currently in abeyance, awaiting these amendments. Thank you very much.
Chair, that's all from our side. We'll be guided by you, and we're ready to take questions and guidance from yourself, Chair, and honorable members. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thanks very much, Deputy Minister, and the team from National Treasury, the chairperson of the Land Bank, and the team for the presentation. We now move to interaction by the committee. Let me indicate that as it has already been alluded to, that on the 21st of April, we had an oversight visit to the Land Bank in Pretoria. And we had a very constructive engagement with the board and the management of the Land Bank. There were officials from Treasury, if I'm not mistaken, in that meeting. We had it at, what is that mall? Mainly Main, something like that. And there are a number of issues that were raised, and also the committee made specific proposals. So I wouldn't like to go into those proposals because it will limit the participation of committee members here. But we have adopted the report, I think in June, in regard to the issues that we have observed, discussed, and agreed that these are the issues, if implemented, can be able to assist to take the bank forward. Let us also welcome the presentation by Ms. Tavinkosi on the plan that they have as the board, how they are planning to stabilize the bank, and also grow the bank. So I see honorable members in the platform who are raising their hands to contribute. Honorable Sarupen and then Honorable Morolo. Honorable Sarupen.
Thank you very much, Chair, and apologies for the video again. I am battling with energy outages. It's not load shedding today. It seems to be a substation issue. Chair, with regards to the presentation, I welcome it, and I welcome the efforts that the Land Bank is making to turn itself around. But I'd like to get an understanding from the Land Bank about some of the issues that weren't necessarily touched on. So they've previously cited recently that they're losing key staff and skills in the absence of a liability solution. And I'd like to get a sense of what the scale of that is and what interventions they are making to deal with that. And there, Chair, I hear that the Land Bank is going to be resuming some of its lending activities. I know that in the past, the reason why the Land Bank was unable to do so was because of its default status, meaning that it couldn't source any new funding. So I'd like to get a sense of what the source of funding is for them to be able to resume some of their lending activities. That is, if I understood the presentation correctly. And then lastly, just with regards to the liability solution to the liability issues, is it on track to have the solution in place by the end of the year as planned? And if not, why not? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Sarupen. Tompe Morolo.
No, let me to welcome the presentation by the Deputy Minister, the Land Bank and Treasury. And I just have a few questions, Chair, and perhaps just one remark. The first question is has been asked by the previous speaker. It is with respect to the staff retention strategy. What is the ultimate strategy for staff retention, given the fact that there is a growing loss of staff and skill? The second question is the broad strategy to deal with the non-performing loans. If we can get a sense of what is the strategy there. You know, during our oversight visit, there was concern about the role that was played by intermediaries, which was not very constructive. If we can get a sense of where we are with respect to this matter, and if they have completely terminated the mandate of these intermediaries. Chair, we're encouraged that the Land Bank has revised its funding model to make it more friendly. And, you know, the collaboration with the Department of Agriculture is also encouraging. We would be interested that in future, the bank will provide more details with regard to the new blended financial scheme so that we really get a sense of how emerging farmers, in particular Black farmers, would benefit out of this blended financial scheme. Thank you very much.
Can we get responses from Treasury and the Land Bank on the issues raised by honorable members?
Thank you, Chair and honorable members. Going to the questions by Honorable Sarupen. So when it comes to the resumption of new lending, we are using the existing cash on the Land Bank's balance sheet. We had very extensive discussions with our lenders around the need for us to really curtail the negative impact that the land bank's absence was having on the market. So we agreed with our lenders that we use a proportion of the cash that we have available to resume new lending activities. So the source is cash on our balance sheet, and currently we have quite a healthy cash balance from which to draw, and that really is in support with the support of the lenders, because ultimately we are using cash that was ultimately earmarked for the repayment of debt, but the lenders really in agreement with us that it is quite important to retain the presence of the land bank really for the greater good of the country and for the sector. Regarding the progress on the liability solution, members will be aware that we had initially set ourselves a target of 30 September. Unfortunately, we did have some challenges with a few lenders on some points in relation to the debt restructuring agreements that we were working on. We are still fully hoping to have this liability solution concluded, if not by the end of this calendar year, definitely by the end of the financial year. These are very, very complicated discussions that involve a number of different lenders, including multilateral organizations with jurisdictions in a number of countries. So these discussions have unfortunately taken a little bit longer than what we anticipated, but we certainly have every intention to conclude this by the end of the financial year at the very, very latest. With respect to the interventions that we spoke about in terms of our critical staff, we currently have a critical staff vacancy in excess of about 10%. And so that really does mean that of the staff members that we do deem critical to the operations of the bank, we have a vacancy rate of over 10%. We have started to fill some of these vacancies and also start to ensure that we don't necessarily have further attrition in these critical areas. The board quite recently concluded a program that we are still in discussions with our union and our employees on in terms of retention initiatives that we do have in mind. Unfortunately, those discussions are ongoing, but we have really started to see some encouraging discussions there, and the need and the understanding from the broader workforce of the organization around the type of things that we do need to put in place to retain staff. As I mentioned, we also are aware that it's not all about the salary when it comes to employee happiness and employee satisfaction. It also goes to the broader issues around working conditions, around employee value propositions, around the development of staff and where they see a future for themselves in the organization. And these are things that we've started to work on through really encouraging staff to really put forward their development plans. We have started performance contracting in line with the new targets that we communicated with the National Treasury, so that employees understand what is expected of them, how they will be measured, and how they will be incentivized. Going to the issue of non-performing loans asked by Honorable Morolong, our non-performing loan ratio currently sits at about 47%, which is extraordinary, and it is incredibly high. And the big proportion of this really is unfortunately from the loans that we did in-source from our intermediaries. And we did notice that there were some credit management practices that we were unhappy with that we are trying to rectify. We've really started engaging with those clients in financial distress. We found that some clients, for instance, were unable to pay the bank due to drought conditions, or due to the fact that perhaps they didn't understand the terms of the agreements that had been reached with the intermediaries versus the land bank, etc. So we are reaching conclusions with those and engaging with the clients where we feel that intervention is necessary. On the intermediaries, we have terminated our agreements with most of these intermediaries, and we do just have 2 remaining that we do intend to also conclude or to do away with. And that the purpose of this really is so that we can exercise better credit oversight over our book. We've learned very difficult lessons from the past, and we see the need to have more control over our book and to direct the portfolio to where we need it to go so that we're able to allocate capital in a way that really speaks to the mandate of the bank and the objectives that we have set for ourselves. Lastly, Honorable Morolong's question around the blended finance scheme. Honorable members, I am happy to report that we will be providing these details at the launch of this scheme on the 24th of October, which is next week. We will be launching this blended finance scheme together with the Minister of Agriculture, where all those details will be provided. Farmers will really hear how to apply for these funds, who qualifies for these funds. So that information will be made available in the coming week. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Are you done? Okay.
Yes, Chairperson.
Sure. Before we, hold on a second. I revisit my program here. Is there any response from National Treasury? Or if not, I'll request the Deputy Minister to make concluding remarks. Then I will make closing remarks, then we close the meeting.
No, thanks, Chair. I've really nothing to add, except to thank you once more for this opportunity for us to come and present the progress we're making with regard to the Land Bank, which is a very important finance institution in growing and transforming the agricultural sector. And we'll always appreciate your guidance, support, and the critical feedback that we always get from you so that we can deal with certain blind spots that we may have as the executive, but also our colleagues who are running the entity itself, the board itself, management. So we really appreciate this opportunity. And we're looking forward to fast tracking of the amendment of the Land Bank Act. And we do think that if we could make those amendments, it will go a long way in making sure that the bank operates within a sound legal framework, a legal foundation. So thank you very much, Chair. We really appreciate the opportunity. Until we meet again, thank you so much.
Okay. Oh, Mhlonishwa Skhosana.
No, thank you very much, and greetings to everybody. Yeah, so it looks like we don't have these presentations that were made today, both by the National Treasury and the Land Bank. So I don't know if possible, can we have them? Because I think it becomes more beneficial if you do have this presentation, you can always refer to them. Please, Chair. Thank you very much.
Zote Tebogo, can we make sure that you email the presentations to members?
I've just sent it through now, Chair.
Okay. No, thanks. Let me go through the issues that we have adopted as the committee. Yeah. Thanks very much, Deputy Minister, Chairperson of the Board of Land Bank, officials from National Treasury and the Land Bank. As I've indicated before, that on the 21st of April, we had an oversight visit to Land Bank. And subsequent to that, On the 1st of June 2022, we adopted the report as the committee in regard to the observations that we have heard about the land bank and make specific recommendations. Let me go through those critical issues that we have adopted, which we believe will also guide the amendment that is being sought by the Treasury. Because the other thing that we discussed was that we're contemplating to come up with a private members bill through the committee. But now that we have brought this bill, we think that the issues that the committee has adopted will be accommodated. 9.6, because from 9.1 to 5 are observations. The committee believes that the current negotiations on the liability solution should be finalized during this financial year in order to enable the land bank to resume with its lending activities during the current financial year. The bank has not been supporting its clients' funding needs, as there has been no loans disbursed since the event of default. 9.7, the committee believes that the outsourcing of work that the land bank can perform through its employees should be reviewed and curtailed. This talks specifically to issues of its service level agreement partnerships, where the land bank has outsourced its loan book to intermediaries, which then expose the land bank to what can be viewed as duplicate fees. In this regard, the committee notes that some LSA have been cancelled or not renewed and the work insourced. The committee strongly believes that the bank should not outsource its primary activities to intermediaries, as this exposes it to a number of risks, including credit, that's non-performing loans, and concentration risks. 9.8, the land bank received a disclaimer of audit in 2019-2020 and a qualified audit outcome in 2020-2021. The latter was as a result of the refusal of an SLA intermediary partner to provide information required for the verification of disbursement and repayments on the loan book of about 31 billion rand. This is a cause for concern for the committee. The committee urges the board and the minister to ensure that such instances do not recur and that the audit action plans are implemented. The committee will continue to exercise closer scrutiny on the implementation of the audit action plans across the financial portfolio, including at Land Bank. 9.9, the committee calls upon the Minister of Finance and National Treasury to ensure that the business stroke funding model of the land bank is reviewed in order to ensure its sustainability. Amongst others, the committee will request to be briefed by the Land Bank and National Treasury on the implementation of the recommendations of the Strauss Commission of Inquiry into the Provision of Rural Financial Services Report, 1996. The committee believes that the development and transformation mandate of the bank needs some blended financing strategy, which will be favorable to up and coming farmers. This financing should include grants rather than expensive funding sourced from the capital markets. 10, the development and transformation mandate of the bank is very crucial in ensuring that there is transformation and development of Black farmers and that there is food security. In this regard, the committee requires the Land Bank to supply its plans to support transformation and development of upcoming Black farmers. 11, the committee is therefore concerned that the loan book of the Land Bank is not representative of the demographics of South Africa. Women and youth constitute less than 17% of the bank's loan book, and Africans are not adequately and reflectively represented. This means that the larger number of the Land Bank's loan recipients remain white males. This is a cause for concern and calls for a loan book that is reflective of the demographics of South Africa. The committee, in consultation with the leadership of the bank, National Treasury, and the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, will consider the legislative reconstruction of the Land Bank in order to position it as a development finance institution that will play a leading and meaningful role in the financing and support of small-scale farmers, developmental agriculture, and food production. The committee believes that this will help realize some of the objectives of the bank, which accordingly to the Land and Agricultural Development Bank Act include promotion, facilitation, and support of equitable ownership of agricultural land, in particular, the increase of ownership of agricultural land by historically disadvantaged persons, agrarian reforms, land redistribution or development programs aimed at historically disadvantaged persons or groups of such persons for the development of farming enterprises and agricultural purposes. The removal of the legacy of past racial and gender discrimination in the agricultural sector, programs that contribute to agricultural aspects of rural development and job creation, and lastly, food security. 13, the legislative reconstruction of the bank should, among other options, include its repositioning into a development finance institution, which will equitably provide agricultural finance and grants to all people in a manner that is representative of South Africa's racial, gender, and age demographics. It should also necessarily include an alterations of the Land Bank's financing model in a manner that will make it not wholly dependent on capital markets, but additionally on the National Revenue Fund to finance, support, enhance, and enhance inclusive agricultural development for all the people of South Africa and in all areas. 14, the committee knows that between December 2018 to February 2020, there were acting CEOs and CFOs at the bank. The Land Bank CEO resigned in April 2022, and this will again result in another acting stint in that critical portfolio as the recruitment process is often delayed. The committee once again call upon the board and the Minister of Finance to ensure that critical positions at the bank are filled expeditiously in order to ensure stability. 15, and the last, the committee engaged with SASBO, the recognized union of the employees of the bank. The committee knows the concern raised by the union on issues of staff morale, lack of salary increases and incentives, and the dispute that the union has referred to the CCMA. The committee believes that the SASBO, the board, and the executive management of the bank need to find each other and seek to resolve dispute amicably before resorting to the courts with demoralized employees. The Land Bank is unlikely to implement an effective and efficient turnaround strategy. But we believe that what the chairperson has presented today comes handy to the issues that we have raised. So these are the resolutions of the committee which will have to be implemented. Hence, I said we were contemplating to come up with a bill as the committee. However, now that this bill has been presented, we will make sure that the issues that the committee has resolved upon are actually accommodated in the bill. So we'll engage the services of Treasury and also our legal services to try to find each other or one another, including the Land Bank itself. As you are saying that you are launching is it a blending finance with the Minister of Agriculture? And we have raised that matter very sharply. So that's the way forward to make sure that we move at the same wavelength. Thanks very much again, honorable members, honorable deputy minister, the chairperson of the board, Ms. Nkosi, the support team of parliament, treasury, media, and everybody who is in attendance. Thanks, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Malibongo.
Thank you, Chair.
Tshokela batho ba suku.